Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George-Affleck.
And it's time for
Happy New Year, Happy New Year, Happy New Year, UnSpun.
I missed you, George Affleck.
Can you believe it? 2023. And am I allowed to even say Happy New Year at this point? It's
No.
January
No.
12th, something like that.
What is it?
October.
It's July,
Yeah,
June, January?
I haven't been sleeping much lately. I don't know.
So here's my take on the Happy New Year.
Yeah.
As of double digits, we start to say it's almost spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's almost spring.
It's almost spring.
We're even though just winter just started in December, but you definitely
Doesn't matter.
December 21st. I always find it so weird because that's when you start getting lighter again, and so it's always weird that that's the beginning of winter. You think no, it's the end of winter for Vancouverites.
Well, you
But we're
can't
moving
blame
on.
people for feeling like it's Groundhog Day because, I mean, we're going to get to local, provincial and municipal politics,
Yeah.
but we'd be remiss, George Affleck, if we didn't at least do a little bit of a back sweep because we haven't done an episode of Unspun, and welcome back to our listener, to our viewers who have been
3 or
reaching
4
out
weeks.
going, where the heck are you? So let's talk about what's happening in the United States, and we'll get to the Kevin McCarthy debacle in a second. But Joe Biden right now, as of, like you said, January 12th, just this morning, Merrick Garland has assigned a special investigator to look into the yet more classified documents, this time found at Joe Biden's home.
In his garage. I mean, and I love watching CNN twist themselves into pretzels, trying to figure out how to not be like the way they were with Trump on this. And yet they, come on, on the surface, it seems to be the same thing. I mean, has every president and vice president kept documents at home, and we're just starting to find them? What is happening here? What is happening?
I will tell you the difference that I've been watching between the two. And I agree with you up front. All of it's bad. All of it's bad because depending on what the contents of these documents are, they're put in a position where they can be used against, North America as a whole or greater democracy worldwide, whatever. The difference being, though, that it's Biden's people found the documents, reported them missing, but reported them found, returned them to the archives immediately, and have said, oops. Whereas that guy, 45, was more like, I just don't like him. I just don't want to give him any. I don't want to give him any publicity.
The Orange Beast.
That guy. I love how Stephen Colbert finds a funny way of saying his name without saying his name. Anyway, to the meat of it, to the heart of it, Donald Trump, former president, twice impeached, disgraced Donald Trump, basically said, yeah, I've got them. I've declassified them. And no, you can't have them back. And you can't look at them. And that's why they ended up raiding his house, because they were like, where are these documents? And not a handful of documents, but hundreds of documents. And so, yeah, it's all bad. But at the same time, it's not the same situation here. And I think the due diligence is needed because all of it's bad.
It's bad. It's bad. When I left office in as a local politician, I had no documents in my home. I didn't want any documents.
Yeah.
I'm at home now. I'm not working. I don't want a bunch of boring files. We get our big folders every week, but we would get classified documents, and in most part, they were shredded right away. But stuff that you might keep that you think, this might be like you had for whatever reasons, letters from people or whatever. I don't know. You just basically didn't turn them in. You didn't. And I don't know what they shredded them. I have no idea. They handed everything over to staff. It was all in my office. Take it. I don't want it. What am I going to do with all this stuff? I don't want to ever have to deal with this. And you have to actually see your emails. And so I just find it bizarre that, why would this box be in his garage? Why?
It's dumb. And it's from when he was vice president. So this is a long time ago. Like, how did the archives not note the lack of documents, And like you said off the top,
is there
George,
not a sign-off process when you go to a library? You have a library card. You know exactly what book I have. If you have to say, what's a Dewey Decimal System for vice presidents and presidents? People.
You dropped the Dewey Decimal System. I love that about you. Hey, can we talk about all of the happenings around the election of the Speaker of the House, and how basically somebody who ran and won with nothing but fraud behind him keeps his opportunity to be sworn into office because he is so vital to the election of said speaker, to the House being held by the Republican Party, and then watching the unprecedented 15 votes go down. I watched it all, George. Were you riveted? Like reality
I watched
TV? Yeah.
not all of the votes, but it was, and of course you could argue, hey, this is democracy in action. It's hard. That's kind of his spin. McCarthy's spin is like, hey,
I guess
I
you
didn't ask
could.
for this to be easy. He had to compromise and a bunch of stuff. Although some of the stuff that people talk a lot about, which was this one vote to kick him, to have a vote to have him ousted or whatever, it's something that was normal before, and it was actually the Democrats that got rid of it. So, and they talk a lot about they were actually speaking a lot of things that I love. To be honest, they were talking about transparency. They were saying a lot of the right things in my mind, and we hear a lot about in Vancouver about transparency, process. There was one thing about cameras in, the fact that we could see all of this. We don't usually get to see all of this. We don't get to see all this kind of stuff in our debates here. You get the question period, and that's about it. But it's not the most exciting stuff. City Hall, you can watch all of it if you want. It's very exciting.
It's great to go to sleep to.
Yes, but it's interesting. They were saying some of the things that really resonated to me as far as transparency. Why can't people who are not in the I'll call the upper echelons in the key areas, they're not allowed to bring ideas onto the floor. Believe me, having been a politician is very frustrating when you have no power and you have great ideas and you're not allowed to even bother submitting them. I went through that for 7 years in office where I was have these ideas and they would just get kicked out, or I wasn't even. It was very so I can see how there's a lot of politicians. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican who are junior congressmen, women and men, and they're like, I have these ideas and I want to submit it, but I'm not allowed to. Or they get these massive $1 trillion financial documents. They have like a day to analyze them. They say we need at least 2 days. They're asking for 2 days. I mean, that seems okay. Come on. Let's. There are some good things that came out of this, I think, but I think the drama and the fact that we know that McCarthy is duplicitous. I mean, duplicitous. What?
Duplicitous.
Duplicitous.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Talks out of both sides of his mouth. You mean?
And vote on both sides. He just is all over the map. He'll just vote wherever the wind is blowing. So nobody trusts him. That's what the problem.
It's from a layperson's. I love your perspective of the actual nuts and bolts and the need for some of this to not all be wiped with a big fat brush of partisan politic, noise. I love that you bring that perspective. One of the reasons why we do this podcast, why it's called Unspun, is because you do have the ability to say on a much larger scale what we saw happening in the House is something that we've seen happen in City Hall closer to home. And it's important for us to have our minds look and focus here locally, certainly at a provincial level, most definitely at a municipal level. And, George, in terms of turnout last year on your birthday for the municipal elections, the turnout was abysmal. And we also went through the provincial election. So we've got a couple of things we need to chew on here for 2023 in that we have a new premier and we have a new mayor of Vancouver. We have a new mayor in the city of Surrey. We got lots of new politicians all over the place because many politicians were like, you know what, I'm tapping out. I don't want to do this anymore. Somehow, some way, though, Brad West is still rocking it like as he has in the past. But we've had some controversy with David-Eby, obviously, before he took office. And yet he has made some very significant moves in his first weeks and months in that premier's seat. So let's have a little bit of a discussion just to catch people up. A lot of people tuned out over these last few weeks. What are you seeing from now Premier David-Eby?
Well, he's really working the pragmatist angle for sure. And I'm a pragmatist. His comments about SROs, basically the last week, saying we will not continue with this model. Right. It does not work, and being very clear about that. So good. You can't. be, allow those things to continue, and trying to shoebox in this way, literally trying to turn them into better SROs. I mean, it just doesn't work. We need to build better facilities. You and I have been talking about that for in our
Years.
fifth season.
Yeah.
That this needs to be, there needs to be a better plan for housing, and drug addiction and mental health care, and all those things have to come together. But I think it's tough for the BC Liberals, soon to be renamed, to find their angle. I saw, Kevin Falcon talking about he's going to go after them for housing and this. I'm like, he was kind of getting ahead of them. You don't want to be following. If you want to lead, you got to lead. And so the Liberals need to kind of find their thing, and really that resonates, because Eby is kind of getting them off guard on a lot of these things, saying things that I would think that some people who are conservative go, yeah, I don't want that either. And that's
he has surprised though, right? So in his previous to politics, in his prior to getting into the political realm, if you will, and what the expectation was from some, what he might do with regard to the homeless crisis, housing, and addiction, there were assumptions. It feels like there were assumptions made as to where he might be going with this, and then he pivoted to, you know what, I'm actually trying to pull in all of the pieces of the puzzle and
I was wrong with what I said. I learned something.
It's worse now. It's way worse now, right? Like it's
him going down there. That video that I think I sent you a story that was done by a controversial local group, and it was with the VPD. Did a walkabout, which all of us, I go down there. If anybody hasn't been down there, it's bad.
You'd be shocked.
So this video became weird. It was viral around the world, and it sort of made, I think, stepped up. Bad PR sometimes gets politicians' asses moving, and I think that was one of the things the world is looking at Vancouver, going, "What in the hell is going on?"
Yeah.
And you can't just say, "Well, these people are homeless. They need to, whatever. It's winter. It's summer." There's always a reason they're living on the streets. I mean, like, why they're living on the streets? They're drug addicts. They have mental health care issues, and there's not enough housing.
They have nowhere to go.
500,000 people moving from around the world who are being brought in from all these countries because of plus other people moving here, plus babies that are being born. We're not doing enough. And I'm still not seeing a plan. I still don't see a plan from anybody. I hear a lot of talk in a building here and a building there. I saw the Minister of Housing, and he's talking about this and that. I'm like, but come on. I've done the math for you. I've done the math. It's $1 million a unit. It's $1 million a unit. That's just budget it. Just say to the people of British Columbia or Canada, of all Canada, if the Prime Minister and every Premier and every Mayor said, okay, it's going to cost, it's $1 million, assume it's $1 million a unit. That's housing. That's how much it's going to cost you. Where that money comes from is what you need to figure out. That's the cost. Maybe it's cheaper in Saskatchewan, but still, let's assume it's $1 million. Now, that's including the property. Now, okay, so now we have a mental health care crisis. How do we deal with that? What's the solution? Okay, well, guess what? We need more doctors. So actually, the minister responsible in BC, he said some good things this week about nurses and bringing fast tracking. That's the kind of stuff we need to related to healthcare and mental health care. Is we need more people helping them, and we need more facilities where they can go to be helped.
I want to touch on that. Let's talk the details, the unspun details on that, because we've been screaming about skilled foreign workers and how you get specifically and in particular nurses into our healthcare system. How do you get nurses accredited so that they may work here? I say it all the time. My grandmother was a doctor of physiotherapy, and she was a hostess at the cafeteria at UBC because it was just a non-starter for her. It was 4 years of basically going back to school and proving that she knew what she knew. And with Premier-Eby making the announcement that, you know what, we're going to shorten that to between 6 and 8 months. Like, that is a huge shift from 4 years. Like, I mean,
you can say that though, but how?
But at least we're starting somewhere, George. Like, that's the place. If it is spin, and we hear from nurses saying, yeah, no, that's not happening. But
I just feel
maybe
like
it'll move it.
Put a bottom line. Some of these guys have to put a bottom line on this.
Yeah.
That it's money. You got to throw money on it. How did we solve the COVID crisis? We threw money at it. That's how we did it.
Yeah.
The companies, it was actually Trump, and I know people hate this. he incented the private sector, give a lot of money to go out and do the research to figure this out. Even though he's a freak and he's an anti-COVID, whatever he is, but he actually out of the gate was like, okay, let's get because he's a private sector guy, let's let them figure it out. Of course, and of course they worked with schools and institutions, but we threw money at it, millions, trillions. I don't know how much how much did every country throw at the vaccine? It's like that's how you solve these problems, but you have to be
and
honest
sharing
with the
information
taxpayers.
and sharing information.
Yeah, sharing information. Exactly.
Big part of that.
And mental health care
Right.
and homeless,
So
that's a problem, not just in BC and Canada, it's around the world.
So why would we not take the word of educated scholars who study exactly this and ask him and them to destroy the research that shows what is sort of the plan doesn't work? And you've been talking
about a
about
story that came out today, I think, or this week from various publications with Julian Summers, the prophet.
Professor Julian Summers. Yep, Summers. Yep. We had him on Steel and Vance.
Did you? Yeah, and that's on Thursday nights every week. That was last week, was it on?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, so you can
garnered a great deal of attention.
chechtv.ca, is that where we can check it out?
Close. Checkmedia.ca. You can find it from 2 weeks ago.
Thank you.
Dr. Julian Summers, I want to say he was on actually the December 22nd edition of the program. And we actually have Guy Felicella joining us today to further that conversation as somebody who has lived on the streets and lived a life of addiction. And he's been homeless. He knows it. He knows how and what worked for him, and get his take specifically about, because it's controversial, right? Like there are polarizing pieces of this. There are people that feel like
tell us what Julian's been saying, because I think it's something that I've been saying too.
It is something that you've been saying too, but it's about safe supply. It's about creating an environment where there is access to safe supply.
That's not the solution.
It's not the solution. And the research shows it. It's not his opinion, right? He's actually crunching the numbers and looking at the data and going out to other jurisdictions, because this isn't unique to Vancouver. This isn't unique to the Lower Mainland. This isn't unique to British Columbia. And it was interesting speaking with him. And even with a 10-minute segment, we barely scratched the surface. And we were like, well, you got to come back. But at the root of it was governments are asking or demanding that SFU destroy the research that he has gathered to come to this conclusion. What?
Weird.
What?
What the hell?
Why?
So weird.
And that it's not a headline because there's so much other going on that, right? So,
shifty going on there.
Shifty.
Doesn't seem right. I mean,
but there's so much.
I think it was the ministry or anyways, check out the story. There are multiple stories on this this week, and watch Steel and Vance, because I find that this is frustrating, and I feel, I think that this lack of willingness, because you get shut down pretty quickly, and I have experienced it, certainly you get this on Twitter or wherever, you say something.
Oh yeah, you're an evil person.
Some tweet of mine came up because somebody, I don't know, whatever. It was like a tweet from 2 years ago, and I'm like, what is this tweet that I put out there? I'm like, oh yeah, that seems like a dick thing to say, but okay. I was being a bit of a jerk for sure. But I thought, but I'm still kind of spicy. I didn't say it in a way that probably, and I was related to homeless, and I was related to protesters or something. And people were just, I was like, wow, people. I obviously didn't pay much attention back then, but I was looking at all these, we get a lot of hate there, and that's intimidating. And I think that's what happens right now. It's really hard to say something related to housing, homelessness, and drug addiction and mental health care that is against what it appears the majority of people in this, the centrists and the leftists on the political spectrum, are saying. So I'm encouraged, though, when you see our premier, who would be considered left-wing, saying things that are like admitting that there's a problem, and then when you see stories like this finally coming out, when this person is being vocal, and that we're paying attention, and we're talking about cleaning, there's an RFP out right now for the downtown east side, cleaning it up, and so there's stuff happening, but it's still too slow. I mean, I think that how many more years are we going to keep talking about what we know is the problem, and we know what the solution is? We do. We know what the problem is, and we know what the solution is, but it's just going to cost us a lot of money. And so you need to start selling that to the taxpayers. That's what you have to do. You have to guess what, taxpayers? You got to spend $1 million a unit if we want, and we need 100,000 units. So how are we going to do this?
And also circle what is being spent to maintain what isn't working. because I think that's a huge story as well. When we talk about who's making money by not doing the things, by not reaching the result that the money being spent is meant to, the accountability piece, right? You got to, to dial, to dig into what that is. And it's not, it shouldn't be positioned as a blame game or a gotcha game, but just, you know what? Hey, it's not working. It's not working.
We have a formula. We have a system for that, by the way. It's called the private-public partnerships. They work really, really well. And you get a lot of pushback. The NDP hate them. They hate them. They canceled them. They canceled all the tolls on the bridges. That's a private-public partnership. I know that people hate tolls, but they worked. Canada Line, it's a private-public partnership. So it was built, it came in ahead of schedule, under budget. And guess who takes care of it? Not us, the taxpayers. It's a private company who manages it. And they decide when they need more trains, and they make sure it's efficient. They take care of all the stations. We don't pay. It's paid for as a private business. And guess it works. There's obviously subsidies related to how Translink and its relationship work, but basically,
for sure,
it's a way to build stuff, and you can do that with anything. But oh my God, most governments in power right now, certainly left center and left of center, don't like private-public partnerships. They really don't. They think they're a dirty concept, and it works because you know what the private sector is. Sorry, everybody, they actually are efficient, and they like to get stuff done, and they watch their margins, and they want to make things work. Especially if they have an incentive. If there's a margin in it, oh God, they're going to make a profit off poor people. Well, yeah, but they're also going to build more housing than anybody else could if you can do it. What do you want? More housing, or do you want less housing? Well, most put more housing for poor people. Okay, great. Is government going to build it? Because they haven't.
No.
Most of the housing that was built in the 1970s that we have, the 3-story walk-ups. I grew up in Langley. There's tons of these 3-story walk-ups. They were built with using the federal incentive program to build housing. There were grants available. You build these 3-story rental buildings all over Langley. They're everywhere. They're still there.
I'm gonna jump in with that. In Montreal, remember when I went there for the election? I was covering the election for Al Jazeera English, and I could not believe the brilliance in the clear housing mission all throughout every suburb, as far as the eye can see around the downtown core.
You know why? Because you know why? The Quebec has complete control of their taxation,
right?
And they don't have to deal with the federal government the way we do.
That's right. So, you finished my thought.
Situation, yes. So
100%.
Empowering government's one thing, but let's just get going on this. We know the math on how much. Now we just need to find the people who are going to do it, and the money. You know, it's either tax things like incentives, companies or individuals, or it's just throwing cash at it and we all pay it. You got to decide, or it's a mixture of both.
Billions of dollars.
Hey, we've only
got so much time left, and we got a lot I want to touch on. I want to get to the city of Vancouver in particular. I don't know, you live in a condo, so you probably don't know the pain that the rest of us have been feeling with regard to garbage and recycling throughout these holidays. I get it. Weather disruptions and delays are one thing.
Fully private in the old strata, so we're good.
Brutal. Like it was an absolute garbage fest. It was just,
Still is. People still complaining, I see on Twitter. And of course, you know, I know that's very confusing, but who picks it? So I always get it confused. So the city does your recycling.
Garbage. City does garbage.
No,
City does garbage. Okay. City doesn't do green bin or recycling.
Okay, so it's that way around. Okay. It's good.
Because it's the green bin. Confused. The green bin's the big controversy now because the city of Vancouver, because the place that they contracted out to need to upgrade their trucks. They don't have the right manpower. There's a staffing issue. There's all these things. So they're going to only pick up the green bin every 2 weeks because it was green bin weekly and garbage every 2 weeks, which people got used to. It's not great. I mean, I would definitely have people putting garbage in my garbage cans because I don't police them. They're not like right outside my door. So ours finally got picked up. It's the recycling versus the green bin versus the garbage. We'd have to like be on the app to figure out when they were coming for what. I'd look around and see who's putting what out. And anyways, it got to be too much math. Suffice to say, it's not a great service that we have right now. It needs some fixing. So hopefully the incoming council and the new mayor will fix it. But can we talk a little bit about the park board? Can we give a little good news story here?
I mean, Yes, there's some. I mean, for the first time in a long time, we're getting some good news out of the park board. And but just quickly, I'm really annoyed by a tweet that I saw from Bob from the Vancouver's Awesome, the mayor,
Okay.
and I
Yeah.
retweeted it saying, like, the mayor, he sent him texted the mayor, Ken Sim, saying, hey, whatever, pitching, I want to talk to you about this. Got a text back saying, sorry, this is not Ken Sim's number anymore. You have to email this generic email blank.com or whatever. It's like, come on, there are literally, you and I, when we fill in at NW, there's only about 10 people in the city that need to get hold of the mayor. They're not gonna take advantage of texting him. But generally,
No.
most mayors, like Brad West, you as a
I have
journalist
Brad
have
West's
his
number.
number, and you can text
Yeah.
him
I
and
have Ken
DM, and
Sim's
he
number. I
responds.
wonder.
We'll try. He won't answer. And I think that's just bad. It's just bad optics. And I think,
That is
come
not good.
on, just so like literally 10 journalists. I think you can handle it, buddy. Anyways,
I would
but
never
Parkboard,
give
good
those
news.
numbers out, by the way, and nor would Bob
I know.
Cronbauer. Like, nobody's going,
Of
hey, I
course.
got the mayor's number. Here, send it up.
Of course.
If somebody asked me for your number, I would call you and say, someone's asking me for your number. Can I give it to them?
Yeah.
Or give you the number that, like, this is etiquette.
I don't get it. It's
This is
bad.
not,
Bad.
that's not good.
And when I said at start, if you mean to go on when we first did it, I'm like, come on, this is not a good. Don't do these things. This is how transparency is like it just eats away. Anyways,
I will
but good
play.
news.
Let me just wait. One thing for
Yes.
devil's advocate there. Because of the lack of availability of the prior mayor, the current new communicative, active, I mean, the releases that we get actually have some meat on the bone, which is kind of nice, refreshing, shall we say. Perhaps he's just so inundated on that number that everybody had that it's a symptom of a problem that isn't about media or journalists, but just a simple like, okay, we gotta let this pipeline da 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 da. You know what I mean? Maybe I don't know.
I don't
You're
have
like
Ken
me.
Simmons' number, but okay, sure. Let's
Okay.
go with that. Let's move on to the good news because we only have a
Okay. I want
I
park
think the
board
park
good
board.
news. Yeah.
This is like so. There's also the good news about Granville Street. That's going to come on there. They're going to start looking at Granville Street as a city, which is great news
Let's
as well.
fix that.
Granville Entertainment District.
Yeah.
Get that fixed. But so it's a community plan, which they haven't done in 5 years. The community plan. They've been so busy with the citywide plan that they never did any community plans in that last term, which is never before
Crazy.
not done. Like it's just bad. So they're going to do a community plan for Granville Street. For the park board, they're going to look at making money building the private sector, build restaurants and things like that in parks where I hope, obviously not on green space. Calm down, everybody. There's a parking lot, for example.
Yeah.
There's a parking lot in west side Vancouver, over at Jericho, or whatever the hell that is, way down the end of the beach.
Spanish
a giant
Bank.
parking lot.
Giant.
You telling me you can't put 10 restaurants and some studios and some galleries and whatever down there so that people who are riding their bike to the end at that point, because after that you go up the hill, come on, let's replace a parking lot with something that's active and interesting. You need down there by the private sector so the park board can make money. So they're going to look at that. And
I love it.
The 9 o'clock gun. The 9 o'clock gun. Back finally. For God's sake,
Yeah.
How long did it take to get that park? And what was it? And the cones, they're going, all the bike lane, they're fixing that. There was one more thing. What was the other thing?
Food trucks and booze and fixing the concession stands. And actually, because if you went to a concession stand prior to the pandemic, which I had the opportunity to do because I go to kids' pool every day in the summer, and I would take my kid down there on the weekends and I'd take him to the concession. I'd be like, yeah, I'll get a hot dog. What is this kombucha for $15? Like, how about a concession stand? How about fudgicles for kids at $1.50 when they're 15 cents to purchase? Like, this is not
100%.
difficult, guys. It looks like they're actually considering freeing up the ability to have a food truck at the beach. Like you said, at Spanish Banks, the ice cream truck can roll by. Why can't a food truck set up down there? No, you don't want to have every single thing, flooding down to the beach. There needs to be some kind of, not gatekeeping, but some process of access.
Just sign up
for it. Yeah. But how beautiful would that be? You're not in the way of a restaurant when you're in the parking lot of, the Queen Elizabeth Park, even those big parking lots right by the fountains and such. Wouldn't it be great to have a food truck festival up there? This park board, I believe, might actually do something like that, because they're not like, ooh, we're too busy not mowing the lawn. Oh, God.
making decisions, and if the
aquatic center. Yes, that's huge. Happening.
So
let's
that
go.
Could be underway by the end of this term. That could be underway by the end of this term. That would be amazing. So
it hasn't been
going on there.
Really fixed since it was built in 1974. It's time for that to happen. I know. So I was having a conversation just 2 nights ago. My cousin Cindy's birthday, her wife said, I learned to swim at that aquatic center. And that made me think, like, what was the last time I went there? And I know I'm not going there because things are falling off of it. Like,
and it's not even, I mean, it's such an ugly building on our waterfront.
Yeah, so fix it. And they will. I hope. George _ Affleck on Twitter. At George _ Affleck on Twitter. At Jody Vance, Jody with a Y. We're unspunpodcast.com. Go to our website. Click the link to subscribe. You'll get this in your inbox. It's always just a barrel of laughs. It's season 5 of Unspun Podcast with George Affleck and Jody Vance.